Very warm welcome to our end of show press conference. And Tim, I can confirm to you from the press side it was a very busy show. And
even from the commercial side.
Yes, which will be explained by John and Fabrice. And Fabrice, without any further ado, I hand over straight over to you to give us an overview, first insights, how the show went for us.
Thank you, Stefan. Good morning again to most of you. Sorry to be a bit crowded here. We had, again, I would say, a very successful Paris Air Show. We have received orders and commitments for 421 aircraft worth $57 billion. This is higher than what I personally expected, and you could see that we announced 110 aircraft a few minutes ago with Wizz Air. So when you believe that everything is pre-planned, this is at least only partly true. But when I compare with the previous air show in 2013, I think we were, and it was supposed to be an excellent one, around 466 commitments and orders. So we are in the same ballpark, and it confirms that the market trend is extremely positive. It confirms that we will achieve, and I hope overachieve, our target we communicated early this year, which was to have a book-to-bill above 1, so above 630 plus net orders. We will see that. We have still 6 months to go. However, we are leading again this Paris Air Show in terms of orders and commitments. We cover, you have seen also interesting points, not only the success of the 320 family, and also the 321 Neo family. Many questions about will we ramp up further. The potential is there. We are studying it. We are studying it also with our partners, with our suppliers, and we'll come to a decision this year. I hope we'll be able to ramp up further than rate 50 a month in 2017, which is currently the plan. On the single aisle, it was perhaps not much noted, but we have also signed an extension of our partnership with ST Aerospace. You know that we had started this partnership with 330 conversion from passengers to freighter, and they have become also shareholder of our subsidiary FW in Germany, expert in that. We have extended it to the 320, so we'll be able soon to offer to the market these solutions, especially as we will have more and more 320 CEOs coming out of operations from a passenger's perspective, the oldest one, and we will, I think, boost this market with this agreement. On the single aisle, I also confirm that the next industrial step will be the opening of our mobile final assembly line, so in Alabama, in the United States. We will start operations this summer. Actually, we are shipping the first parts over there. There will be an opening ceremony on the 14th of September. You are all most welcome. And we will deliver the first aircraft in 2016 and speed up the ramp up to N17 with a rate of 4 aircraft a month, and which will be part of the contribution of Mobile to our global ramp-up challenge. On the wide body, one, for me, important decision from Saudi Airlines for 20 A330s for regional utilization. And we have started promoting this concept less than 18 months ago in China. I'm sure China needs such a type of aircraft. We can think about India as well, but Saudi is the first country to select the 330 for regional use, and we have with this 330 regional 330, 242 ton. The 330 Neo starting in 18. I think we have also a very strong family, which is an excellent complement to the 350. This is what I wanted to say as an introduction, and now I hand over to you, John, because I did almost nothing about this 421 aircraft.
Not at all. You had to approve every one of those deals. At any rate, we are very pleased with the results that we had. Remember Monday morning right here, we started off with our brand new global market forecast, and it's $4.9 trillion worth of airplanes over 20 years, about 23,000 single aisle, about 8,000 twin aisle aircraft, and 1,500 VLAs, and that includes quite a few freighters, so it's a little over 1,200 passenger airplanes. We differ with Boeing. I think there's somewhere around 600 VLAs are needed, but you know, even if they're right, that means that we've got about 90% or 95% of the passenger market, so I guess we get 95% of their 600 as well over the next 20 years. So it is a strong market for aircraft. It's a strong market even for VLAs, as we discussed on Monday. And again, this is the way it splits out in terms of units. Clearly, 70% of the units are in the single aisle category, and only 45% of the dollar value is there. But it's very important for both Boeing and Airbus. This is where the volume is. So although everybody loves to say you make more money on a wide-body aircraft, there are so many more single-aisle aircraft. Your big contribution to cash, your big contribution to margin is coming from the single-aisle programs. And we started out on Monday with an announcement by Saudia for 20 as A330 regionals, as Fabrice has just said, 30 A320ceo aircraft, $8 billion in total value of that program. And then Steve Hazy, ALC, ordered 5 aircraft firmly. These, by the way, are firm orders when they say ordered. One 350, 3 320ceos, and one A321, valued at $700 million. Garuda commits, that's not a firm order yet, it's an MOU, to 30 350-900s, $9 billion in value. GECAS reordered the A320neo, and that's a reorder now. That is 60 aircraft firmly ordered, $6.6 billion in value. Then we had the first Neo 319 corporate jet. We're very pleased with that, and if things go well, Fabrice and I will be having a dinner tomorrow night where we hope to sign for 2 more 319 Neos. It's really an impressive airplane, about 17% lower fuel burn than today's 319 CEO corporate jet. 17% lower fuel burn, and look at the range, 6,750 nautical miles. Then we had a little announcement by Steve Hazy here with Air Astana. He's leased them the A321LR long range, the ideal replacement for all the 757s out there. And I love the fact that one of the big non-events of the show was a lot of hot air about the middle of the market airplane. Well, the middle of the market airplane is that airplane right there, and it's designed to replace the 757, and the world's airlines know that to be the case. That's why they're ordering it with the world's leasing companies. Then Korean Air committed on Tuesday to the A321neo, 30 aircraft. Yes, some people said, well, they split the order with Boeing and ordered 30 from them. That's true, but they were an all 737 operator, so we don't mind sharing 50% of the market with all 737 operators. Peach, out a low-cost carrier in Japan, ordered 3 aircraft, $290 million in value. EVA commits to 4 additional A330-300ceos. We were pleased with that. 4 aircraft, $1 billion in value. And this was a disappointment to me because we didn't get to announce who it was. We had started the air show planning that we would have a press conference to announce this with the customer. They decided that they didn't have everything cleared internally, and it would be better if they signed an MOU and left their name off. with money down, etc. Full purchase agreement should be signed in July, so we expect to announce this customer and the full purchase agreement in July, maybe August, but it'll be right in the summer. Vietjet reorders the A321, 6 aircraft for about 700 million. Synergy, this is German Framovich, who's a big shareholder, owns half of Avianca. And this is not for Avianca per se, it's for his Synergy leasing group, but they also have Avianca Brazil, 62 NEO aircraft, and this is no overlap to the 100 aircraft already ordered by Avianca a couple months ago. Then we had passenger to freighter conversions. That program is now launched with EFW and ST Aero. Some people have said that we should have had this out several years ago. Well, better late than never. The fact is we now have a single aisle P to F program to go along with our wide body P to F program. We're very pleased with that. Wizz then commits to 110 aircraft, 239 seat layout. By the way, it's certified for 240 seats, so I've got to work with Joseph on why he sub-optimized here with that one seat missing. I'm sure there's room for someone to stand in the back by the galley. But 13.7 billion in value. Very, very pleased with that. And by the way, that pushed us over the limit here. In fact, we were slightly over the limit anyway of 4,000. There's no real limit there. I'm just saying the big number. And our competitor is rounding up there, I understand, about 2,950, almost 3,000. And this is after we launched our program at the end of December in 2010, and they launched their program in the summer of 2011, about 6 months later. And as you know, that's 5 years later, and we're holding about 60% of the market. Why are we holding 60% of the market? Because in 737NG and A320 family were about equal. I always said they were better. Ray said his was better. Most airlines said they're very close. But we were able to do so much more with the NEO than they're able to do with the MAX. We've just opened up that gap. And that's why I think you'll see us maintaining about 60% of the market in the single aisle category. Well, that's the show. Summing it up, there we are. 421 aircraft, 57 billion in catalog price value. They weren't all catalog price deals. So the fact is it's a pretty smooth progression across the different product lines. We're pleased with that. If I look at my competitor, it was basically the AirCap order in the 737 8 MAX category, and that was it. As you can see, we've got COs, we've got NEOs, we've got A321s, we've got A320s. So it's a nice broad product line for us. 24 330s. And I think you'll be seeing in the next couple of months a few more orders that we're cooking up on wide-body aircraft. And dare I say, even before the end of the year, some orders for the A380. Well, this is a good point, I think, to open it up for questions. Stefan?
Thank you, John. And let's open the Q&A session now. Who has the first question? Over to... Please. And please mention your name and media.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I'm from Shenzhen Media Group, China. And my question is, what do you think of the Chinese civilian markets and how to explore the Chinese markets? And the second one is, can you give us some advices about to those companies also producing airliners in China? Because you are always a model for us. Thank you very much.
In terms of the Chinese market, it's a growth market. If you came on Monday, you saw we went into more detail. Right now, the number one market in the world anywhere is domestic U.S. in terms of revenue passenger kilometers, amount of people flying. 20 years from now, our forecast is by far the biggest domestic market or any market in the world will be domestic China. Just flying around China, within China, not even leaving China. If you look at that, and I would think that Boeing and others and the engine manufacturers come up with very similar numbers, it means an enormous growth in that market. We can't have that growth by just doubling the number of aircraft flying. We have to move to bigger aircraft, and that's one of the reasons why we're talking to the Chinese airlines about our A330 regional product. Be able to move twice as many people economically with one aircraft movement instead of two aircraft movement, especially into places like Shanghai and Beijing and all the rest of the mega cities. So we're hopeful that with the significant number of orders out of China, we'll be able to even put a completion center for our A330s in Tianjin side by side with our A320 line.
Next question goes to Robert Wall, Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I have a question for both of you, I think. Perhaps for Fabrice on the 330. Given the order bookings on A330 here, do you still think you can hold rate 6 until the Neo comes in line? And orders plural. So can you be positive book to bill, and if there'll be any new customers on that list?
Well, I'll jump in with the second one first because it's pretty easy to answer. We're negotiating with several customers right now, potential customers. I would like to believe that it would be plural, but it might be singular. Again, it's an aircraft that people take their time studying, but these are serious customers and new customers.
And for
that's always been my goal, but you know, if I get the new customers and get partially there, I'll be happy.
For your first question, yes. My answer is clearly yes. I think we can sustain rate 6. We decided to adjust the production rate because we need to face reality when you move to a new version. You need temporarily to reduce your production, and I think reducing from 10 to 6, extending the 330 CO applications to regional market secures this rate 6. So after the orders we got, notwithstanding additional campaigns, I think 2016 at least is almost done. With probably a handful of aircraft. When I say a handful, is not a couple. It is less than a couple, which is missing to achieve what we have planned. Meaning that perhaps we should have not reduced so much the production rate of the A330.
Thank you. Next question over here.
Yes, Yuchi from Nikkei, Japanese Economic Daily. So my question about restructuring Skymark. So 2 reform plans were presented to Tokyo District Court, and one is submitted by Skymark, the other by U.S. leasing companies. So what is your position on the 2 plans? Thank you.
Well, we will study these 2 plans. We hope if one of them will be at least, if not 2, viable for Skymark. You know that we have some interests as a creditor because we had a big A380 order which has been suspended, and we'll look at these plans according to our own interests.
Next question goes to Steffen Weyer, German Newswire DPA AFX.
Concerning the A380, is there a target when you will decide on A380 Neo or a stretched thing which you are thinking about? Will this be at the end of the year or will it be later?
No. Believe me, the priority for the 380 is first to achieve break-even this year, and I'm pleased to confirm that we will achieve break-even this year financially. This was a goal that we announced, I think, 4 years ago, and we will meet it. It means that in terms of cost efficiency, we went a long way, and we achieve our planned target, which is a good sign. The second one is to get additional customers on board, and for that we don't need any evolution of the A380. We need to convince customers that they can make a hell of money with the A380, and we have some customers who do it and who communicate. So how can we reciprocate that? The third priority, and we have announced it, is to promote higher density layouts for the A380. It's very nice to have very fancy cabins, but at the end of the day, the airlines look at the revenue per seat. And so the number of seats matters. And we have come up, I think, with a very comfortable layout on the A380 in 4 classes, meaning that the airlines can manage their yield appropriately in each class. In each class, including budget economy, the comfort is better than on the other competitors. We have 544 passengers in such an aircraft. And I can tell you with that, if you know how to feel it and to make it work in your network, you have the most effective aircraft in the world flying today and also flying tomorrow, including compared to the large twins 350-1000, for instance. Then later on, we are facing a very interesting challenge which is given to us by our biggest customer, which is Emirates, which is to say, I love your A380, I have 61 of them, I will get 140 of them, but I want first of all to replace them. Keep in mind he has another 80 to take on board, and at the same time to grow my future A380 fleet. This is the challenge which is posed onto us, and we have been starting to study it. But there is no time constraint, and we will study it in a way that makes sense for the customers, of course, but also for the market, which is not limited to one customer, and also, if I may, for Airbus in terms of P&L and business case profitability. What I want to say, concluding on the A380, is that if we look at the trend of the market, who can believe that the future market beyond 2020 for such a big aircraft will not be better than the market of the A380 in 2000? Between 2000 and 2030, the market will have quadrupled in size. Yes or no? 2 times 15 years mean the market doubling every 2 years. Mm-hmm. So we'll have 4 times more passengers in 2030 than in 2000, when we launch the program. And my view is that we probably, at Airbus, launched the A380 a bit early, so we were perhaps ahead of what the market needed in terms of size of the aircraft, but now I think this is really appropriate to use an aircraft of the size of the A380, and we will demonstrate it.
Thank you. Next question to Bloomberg, Andrea Rossman.
Yeah, hi. Good morning here, down here. We need more capacity. 2 questions.
A380, yeah.
Right. We
Yes.
can carve out spaces. Well, we did. One question on Skymark. Okay, a question on Skymark. You said 1, maybe 2 of the plans is credible or is good. What did you mean by that? Is it possible that the 2 plans for Skymark, Savior plans for Skymark, could be put together in some fashion? And secondly, there's Olympics coming up in Tokyo, in Japan, in I think 2020. And I'm wondering if that might give you any hope of selling the A380 into that market. I remember when China was having the Olympics a couple of years ago, that gave you hopes of getting the plane in there.
Well, you don't buy A380s just for 3 weeks, so perhaps it can be a triggering factor, but it is not the only one. I can only repeat what I said on Skymark. I'm not in the details. 2 plans have been potentially approved for future restructuring of the airline, and so we'll have to study these plans. Of course, what counts for us is a plan which gives a future to Skymark, but also a plan which takes account of the Airbus interests, i.e. Airbus aircraft. So this is where we stand. We are not the only creditor. There are also leasing companies with Airbus aircraft, by the way. And so this will be a complex analysis and probably discussion in the coming days and weeks.
Next question to Sebastian Steinke, Flugrevue.
I have a question concerning the Airbus A350, please. As the market grows so much, do you see any possibility to grow it beyond the Dash 1000, so to make it a Dash 1100 or something like that, a stretch for very high capacity routes? Thank you.
Well, you have the A380, remember, at the top, and that's the real interesting remark. I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but the fact is we know why Boeing put 40 more seats into their 777X, because the 350-1000 was obsoleting the 777-300ER. We had the same capacity, the same size, we could do the same routes, but we burned about 25% less fuel and lower maintenance cost. So they had to do something. They didn't do a clean sheet of paper airplane. They updated their 777, and it's heavier. It's not as efficient as a 350 or in a clean sheet of paper design. So to get the seat mile cost at a reasonable level, they added more seats. Manufacturers were doing this for years. Before we rush out and stretch the A350-1000, we have to be sure that the market is asking for 40 more seats. Yes, we could probably put 40 more seats in. The question is, we know why they're doing it. They're doing it because they need the seat mile cost to be lower. Are the airlines really saying, oh, no, the market just shifted, we want 40 more seats? And that's the debate we're having internally and discussing it with the world's airlines.
Next question to John Ostrower, Wall Street Journal.
John, you
Can we lift the mic?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So, described Boeing's discussion this week regarding middle of the market airplane as hot air. But at the same time,
Sorry, can we have another mic for Mr. Ostrower? No, we take the other mic here.
Better? There we go. Okay. I think we got it. Okay, this one. I think we got this one. Okay, there we go. You described Boeing's discussion around a middle of the market airplane as hot air, but at the same time, you also say that you have 60% market share in the single aisle and are beating them on 321 in what you call your middle of the market airplane. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem like you can have it both ways as far as what Boeing can do next potentially in that segment. Do you believe that Boeing will come up with a new airplane, and ultimately how do you see the Airbus counter response on the back end of that potential decision?
Whenever any manufacturer talks about the airplane they're going to be bringing out in 2025 at an air show, that qualifies as hot air. This is 2015, by the way. So that's just trying to stir things up. They know that the 757, which they had 100% of the market, is now being replaced 100% by the A321LR. They're not happy about it. They would prefer to have people wait for some all-new, all-singing and dancing airplane. I went through this exact scenario at air shows before. If you remember back in the year 2010, we were talking about an A320neo and whether we would do it. And if you remember, a lot of discussions which qualified as similar hot air and maybe even not as hot that time, was they were going to do a clean sheet of paper, all new single aisle airplane, and nobody would want a re-engined airplane. That was the talk of the air shows then. Well, we brought out the A320neo. It's taking over the market. 6 months after we brought it out, they decided to do their own 737neo, and they called it the MAX because we'd taken the name Neo. Right now, they're struggling to what happens when we're losing the 757 market. As long as they're talking about all new singing and dancing airplanes 10 years out in the future, that's hot air.
So is it your assessment that Boeing is going to stand still on it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. But if all they do is talk about all new airplanes for the next 10 years, that's an awful lot of 321s I'm going to sell.
Because
Thank you.
You talk about 2025. I think the big boss of Boeing has said not before 2030, so at least they have to align internally first. It happens time to time in a group that the business unit is not aligned with the big boss. Normally the big boss wins, I can tell you. I try. Second thing, Boeing should congratulate us because we helped them avoid a big mistake, which was to launch a clean sheet of paper on the single-aisle segment. And even if we enjoy 60% market share, it means they enjoy 40%. And with a very limited investment, they place close to what, 3,000 aircraft?
Almost 3,000.
3,000 aircraft with a limited investment, they owe us a lot of money.
at least thanks.
Okay, next question, please.
Christian Gentot, Jacques Tiziou News Service. I would like to know how does Airbus feels about the possibility of having a cargo version of 380 in the future? It was planning at the beginning.
I will not insult the long-term future, but we had that in the original plans. And more for industrial than market reasons, we decided to stop it at the end of 2006 because we had too much on the plate. And in the meantime, the big customers who had elected this version were forced to do something else. So we didn't create the dynamics necessary to promote a 380 freighter. Perhaps we are talking a lot about pax to freighter conversion. Perhaps when we have 380 second-hand on the market after 2020, we can imagine a conversion kit which would be lower value and still the highest possible payload. But this is not at all on the agenda. I appreciate that you give us plenty of good ideas on the future product policy of Airbus. Globally, we have never been so strong with, again, if I may recap a bit on that, 320 Neo, 321 Neo, higher density 320 with 189 packs, higher density 321 with
Which one are you talking about?
240
240.
packs. A321 long range replacing the 757. 330 regional. 330 242 tons, which entered service last month. 330 Neo, end of 2017. 350-900, you have only the number 4 series aircraft on the tarmac, and 350-1000, mid-2017. So, yes, I know that we will have to continue to improve all these products, and we have plans in mind, but you have also to consider that we have never had such a new family of products in each of its categories.
Next question goes to Bruno Trevedic, Les Echos.
It's about the 350. So you didn't break a record this year, since the beginning of this year at least. So my question is, why do you keep the available slots for Emirates by chance?
No, we're not keeping the available slots for Emirates. We are very tight in terms of production on the A350 now, but we made a decision internally. I'm the commercial guy. You can imagine I was arguing we needed more aircraft faster, but after watching the mess Boeing got into on the 787, I must congratulate my production and program colleagues that this is, I've been at Airbus over 30 years, this is by far the cleanest and smoothest and most reliable introduction of a new aircraft type I've ever seen. So now that they've done it, I'm back to asking for a steeper ramp up. But at this junction, we're being held back in the marketplace by lack of slots for A350s.
And visit the 350 if you have not done it, Bruno and colleagues, and you will notice a difference with the competition. This is an aircraft which is, I believe, much more adapted to the market requirements. We started with an aircraft which brings the appropriate level of comfort. And I don't believe that the passengers will accept forever to pay the same fare traveling in coach at 16.9 inches and traveling at least at 18 inches. It makes a big difference. Second, the cabin is nicer, is bigger. The revenues per aircraft will be higher. And we are a real family covering with the 900 and Dash 1000, how do we call it, the sweet spot, if I may?
Oh, yes.
The sweet spot of the 777-300ER market. So the market is there. We would sell hundreds. if we could deliver them in 18, 19. Unfortunately, it is not the case. We have to be a little bit more patient. However, as John said, he normally is not nice with his colleagues and with his CEO, but this time it is not the case. We are all very pleased with the engineering and manufacturing start of the A350. We are in line with our plans to deliver 15 aircraft this year and progress further for the ramp-up, but we need till 2018 to stabilize the production at rate 10, and then we will see. It doesn't mean in the meantime we'll have no order.
Yeah, we'll juggle around and keep some new orders coming in. Yeah.
And you can visit the A350 every day at 11 and 1400. Next question goes to Jens Flotter, Aviation Week. Can we have another mic, please?
Can I try? Ah, now it works. Okay. You mentioned you may have cut A330 production too much. Is there a chance you can revert that decision and go stop at 7 or 8?
Well, we have some flexibility, but not to this extent. I mean, when we say rate 6 can be around rate 6, but you cannot move to rate 8 like that. You have a supply chain, you have the cabin equipping and all that. So keep in mind that we will achieve rate 6 in 2016. And if we can deliver a couple of aircraft on top, we will not hesitate to do that.
Next question to John Walton.
Runway Goal Network again. You mentioned, Fabrice, that you don't believe that passengers will continue to accept to pay the same for sub-17-inch seats and 18-inch seats. What, in your opinion, has to change for that to happen? Is it the end of the GDS? Is it something else? Is it more airlines selling directly?
Well, this is not my business, but if you take Emirates, one of the reasons why the A380 is seen as their their core of their business is that it attracts passengers. So I think the airlines should probably play more with this branding, the quality of service, which is not limited to the meal that you get or the videos you can see through the IFE. This is also the comfort as a passenger, the size of the seat, the pitch for your legs, if the aircraft is quiet or not, if it is smooth or not, and all that has a value that I cannot determine the value. I believe in terms of fidelity of the customers and the passengers, it will become stronger and stronger. And look, we are talking with the new technologies, with internet and all that, more about direct connections between the customers and the manufacturers. Not in this business, but in many other parts. And I see no reason why it will not be extended, and not just comparing prices, but comparing value for money.
Absolutely.
Next question goes to Dominic Gates, Seattle Times.
Hi. I think I'm right in saying in the last couple of years, Boeing, because of the 787 ramp-up, have managed to beat you on deliveries. Have you, given the ramp-up that you plan and the A350 ramp-up, have you projected out to when you will perhaps overtake them?
Well, the fair answer is I don't know, because I don't know Boeing's plans regarding the ramp-up, and I guess that they are also probably studying additional ramp-up. It is true that when we cumulate the ramp-up of the 350, so in 2018, the ramp-up of the 330neo, at least on the wide body, I believe we will deliver more wide bodies than Boeing. And then, if we deliver more wide bodies than Boeing and we are leading on the single aisle, normally we should see one day the translation of the order book into the deliveries. Does it really matter? To some extent, yes. It's better for a CEO to say that we deliver more aircraft than the competition. But at the end of the day, what counts is that we are on a profitable growth plan. And this is a message which I want to recap and recall, because this is what we are looking for. Yes, the growth is an ingredient to profitability, but we are a private group and we are looking for profitable growth. And with what we have in mind, if we control the cost and the ramp-up of the 350, normally we should have all these ingredients provided. It's true on the A380 that we get some additional customers on board.
Next question.
I'm Marie Tizon from La Presse in Montreal. There are talks about a bigger C-Series, a CS500. What do you think about that? Are you worried?
Well, no, I don't mean to insult Montreal in any way. And
how many orders did they get?
I was going to point out that for the last couple of years, I haven't really noticed that they're much of a competitive threat to us or to Boeing in the marketplace. Now, having said that, Fabrice and I were invited by Pierre to go down and look at his airplane here, which we did a couple of days ago, and I was impressed with his interior. It's very nice, and I was particularly impressed that he listened to the argument about 18 inches, and his seats are 18.5 inches, and you can notice the difference. For anybody who's wondering about whether you can tell the difference, go sit in a 737 at 17 inches and go sit in a C-Series or an Airbus at 18.5 inches, and it's very obvious. So he's got a nice little airplane there. But no, not too worried right now.
Next question goes to Reuters.
Tim Heifer from Reuters. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Apart from the yet another rabbit pulled out of the hat that we've just seen, it has been, seems to have been a rather flatter show this year, and in fact your shares are down partly because that's what people think. And perhaps people think that those orders that we're seeing show a certain amount of exuberance, but there is not so much certainty about sustainability of production. I wondered if you could respond to particularly the comments by CFM, the head of Safran, who said last week that he was not prepared to give a guarantee on volumes up to 60 a month until 2016 or 2017. You've just said that you would take a decision this year. Aren't you running ahead of even some of your own suppliers?
Yes, but if we didn't do that, we would never get anything from them. So let me do my business, Tim. First of all, this is rare, so I insist on that, I totally disagree with you. There is no bubble. And we would not struggle on how we will ramp up, when we will ramp up, are we supported by the suppliers. If it was a bubble, we would keep the bubble and be very happy with our current production rates. So you need to be consistent. We cannot be under stress because the suppliers are not good enough to ramp up and at the same time tell us we have a bubble. Second, among these 421 orders and commitments, I believe 95% of them will, if not 100%, will translate into firm orders. The last one we got, 110 aircraft from Wizz Air, is not just to beat Boeing. This is because they need the aircraft and they selected the 321neo. This is as simple as that. My mistake was perhaps to downplay a bit at the beginning of the show. I didn't put enough pressure onto John. So it's a good lesson for the next air show. I can be worse, yes. And I said publicly that we would target around 200 orders, a couple of 100 orders. So Wizz Air was not planned, so we were around 300, was not too far away. It's my first comment. Second one, I understand the boss of Safran. We have just flown for 2 weeks with his new engine. And in this case, for me, it's easier to decide on an additional assembly line for the A320 than for him to decide on further investments for ramp up of an engine which has not yet been certified. So we have to convince him that if he doesn't do it, he will lose a big chunk of a market which is almost offered to him. And in this business, we need to take risks. And I will educate my partners that when I take risks, these risks are well under control, and he has to share them with me. So this will be part of the further negotiations and discussions.
And can I just add, Tim, that Stefan told me this morning, so we may want to double check the numbers, but this is our 4th best Paris air show since Charles Lindbergh landed here a few years back. So if it's the 4th best, how do you get a headline that, depressed air show results? 4th best in history.
Thank you. Next question over here.
Nikkei Japanese economic newspaper. I have a question about Skymark Airlines. For what reason does Airbus object to the Skymark revival plan?
No, we object to nothing. I think I answered already twice. We are studying in depth the two proposals, and I'm not in a position to tell you that I support one or the other or both.
Next question, behind the pillar.
Okay, People's Daily from China, and I've mentioned that Mr. Lei has said in 20 years Chinese will be a competitor in this market. And I want to know what is your opinion of this competition between the A330 and the C919 and the C series of Pumbedee in the area of single SO airlines, because I've known some report that said in next few years the Boeing and Airbus couldn't satisfy the huge request of the market. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure Airbus and my competitors of Boeing can answer the market requests and market growth. By the way, this is what we have been doing for the last 30, 40 years. So this is not the point. Then I don't know the details of the new Chinese aircraft. We need to wait till it flies, and then it is delivered to the first airlines, and then the ramp up and the maturity and the maintenance and the support. This is a long way. Our message is there is no reason why Chinese industry as such will not become a competitor. But when and with which aircraft and which performance, we don't know. What I would like to add is that there is quite a tough competition which might be seen as a battle by some of you between Boeing and Airbus. And this one as such is good for the customers, is good for the market and for the growth of this market. And this is also good for Airbus and Boeing because we raise the bar. We are more aggressive. We are better. We develop concepts faster than what we used to do. And this one makes the life of a newcomer, is it C-Series or Comac, more difficult. So, to some extent, this extra strength of the competition reinforces the Airbus and Boeing position. But we have always said that we welcome fair competition, and this is, I think, how Airbus could grow and develop. So we would see no reason why this market would not open up to third players. However, my job and the job of Boeing is probably to try to avoid it or delay it as much as we can. And the launch of the A320neo, I think, is probably making, I have to be cautious, my English is not very good. It's true. A bit more obsolete the launch of competitors before the Neo was decided.
Thank you. Next question goes to Bernie Baldwin.
Good morning, gentlemen. Moving away from actual production, I wondered if you had a response or just an opinion from yesterday's call from the three big legacy airlines in Europe and the two very big low-fare airlines, and their call for changes to a single European aviation strategy, and their calls for more openness, better operation of the air traffic management, etc. I don't know how, you're obviously busy guys, I don't know how much you had a chance to read up on it, but I wondered if you've got any comments on that.
I didn't see this communication, but regarding one European sky unified, I think Europe has to move and move faster. This is already in the pipe. From a technology point of view, we have studied a system which is called CESAR, which improves a lot the air traffic management. And we have also demonstrated, as today this is the day of the COP21 under the leadership of two French ministers. They are coming here on the show, they are probably here right now, that if the CESAR system was deployed, it has been studied and designed, so now we are talking about the deployment, we would save between 5 and 10% of fuel, meaning of emissions. And we would also be much more efficient, the airlines would be much more efficient. So I can only support this desire to move faster. The European Commission has earmarked some money for that. We have just to make sure that the actors will be incentivized enough to place the investments.
And another question goes to Andrea Rossmann.
Yeah, I have a question for John.
Okay, I go.
Well, no, you're involved actually in this. No, John, you are often referred to as possibly the best salesman on the planet.
No, that's not true.
After me, yes.
But you're reaching an age where many people in France certainly would be thinking of retiring to enjoy the fruits of their labor as well as in America. And I'm just wondering, I mean, what are your plans at Airbus for the next couple of years? Certainly there would be a generation of people below you who must be eager to take your job.
Were you taking a poll among my staff? Or?
Yes.
No, I'm 65 and I do have to decide whether, I retire or not, but one has to worry about one's health, but in what you do for a living too, right?
And if you take a bus in America, and John is American, you can have a driver 80 years old.
That's true. That's right. Yeah. You can last a long time.
So you will retire within the next 15 years, promised.
that is absolute certainty.
Okay, with this, I conclude this end-of-show press conference. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for following us. And yes, as mentioned, we have aircraft visits at 11 and 1400 today. The flying display is at 1340 for the A350 and the A380. And see you next at Dubai Air Show.
That's right. Airbus behind you here.
Milieu.